Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking Uneven podcast. We love to talk shop, uncover the beauty of failures, and play a few games. Today, we have with us the founder of MOW Productions, which is Media on Wheels, Supriya Sobti Gupta. She graduated with a master's in media regulations and policy making from the London School of Economics and Political Science. She was a freelance journalist across London, Mumbai, and Delhi, a documentary filmmaker, and a local producer. She started MOW Productions and has directed and produced some incredible documentaries like Bad Boy Billionaires and Caught Out, which are on Netflix. Have we missed anything noteworthy from your journey so far?
I'd see another film that's very close to my heart, which is Mumbai Mafia. But thanks for that introduction anyway, Javi. I think you encapsulated a lot of what I've been doing for the past 15 years.
Cool. So our first game is called the Twitter Pitch Challenge.
Okay.
Twitter is known for its 280 character limit on every tweet, which sometimes makes it a little difficult to convey your thoughts. We measure it, and it takes about 20 seconds to speak 280 characters. So we transfer
Right.
this challenge to you to explain to us MOW Productions in 20 seconds. But it's not so easy. You also need to use one emoji and one hashtag in your tweet.
All right. Okay, cool.
Cool. So let me know when you're ready and I will start your timer.
Okay, let's do it.
Cool. 3, 2, 1, go.
MOW Productions is your go-to place where we tell you extraordinary stories of ordinary people, where we hashtag make it count.
And emoji.
And the emoji.
Oh, big smile. Shall we do this again? Or you
No,
happy
you
with
were
it?
you were under 20 seconds. It was perfect.
Okay, super.
Amazing. It's funny how you said like telling the stories of ordinary people in an extraordinary way. I think we also kind of imbibe that. Like we want to share like the great stories of everyone else. So
Yeah.
similar, I guess, purpose. But to get started, Anuj and I also went to LSC. We did our undergrad and graduated in 2020. And you did your master's back in 2006. So just curious to know, like, how was your journey at LSC? What was your experience like?
Hey, the one thing I remember, well, I remember a lot of things about my time at the LSC, but I will tell you one story. I was in the library, the silent room, and it's the first time I grabbed myself some sushi. You know what follows, right? and, and I looked at, I looked at it and I was like, oh, this looks good. And I went for the kill with the wasabi. Right, because I was like, "Oh, wow, this looks like nice chutney." And the rest is history, but I remember that night so well. It was the first night I was doing a quiet night in the library on my own, really excited. I can't even remember whether you were allowed to eat in there or not, but, everyone would. It was late night, binging, all of that going on. Yeah, so I remember that time. But this is the year when Monica Lewinsky was in my batch. She was in my SAT class. We had statistics, and she
Yeah.
was in that class. So it was like that famous batch, and like a lot of stories going around. So it was fun. It was a great time to be at the LSC, and I did a little bit of radio. I was part of the student union, so I was doing some LSC radio stuff there, something with the sports society. I just wanted to get a feel of what campus life is like because, I did my undergrad again at a university in London, which was the University of Westminster. And my campus was in Harrow. So it's funny, when it was a great place to do the course that I did which was journalism and media studies. And it was the top place at the time. And it worked really well for me because that's really where I found my first job, which was at the BBC. But the funny story there is I thought, oh, I'm going to London and, it's going to be great. And then I realized I'm in zone 4, the back and beyond of central London. So from there to then go to the LSE was great. You're in the heart of the action. It's such an incredible university. It just comes with so much. And I think it's what you draw from it. It's just having the LSE tag isn't everything. It's just what you take away. And I think I made some good friendships. I learned a lot in the heart of London. So lots of memories of that great place.
Okay, so you've technically only been in London for 1 year then, because Harrow doesn't count.
Yeah, yes, in that sense, but I did stick on for longer. So I spent a couple more years after the LSE. But until then, yeah, you can say I was probably barely in London. Yeah.
No, but like it definitely is though, like a really vast difference in terms of like living central and like starting working in zone one versus zone 4, just because at least like I feel like whenever I go beyond like zone 2 and 3, it's very like country like, even though it's a city, it feels like country like. So because like the hustle in zone 1 is so much more, like there are people like
Of course.
24/7 around, there's so much noise. And like that
Yeah,
kind of reminds me of like Mumbai as well, because
of
originally
course.
I'm from Mumbai. So
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, Janvi, I mean, when we're younger, we're all chasing the fast life and living right in the center. Now, 10, 15 years on, if you ask me, my time in Harrow was gorgeous. If I were to pick a place now, I'd probably want to stay there because it's lovely. My campus was beautiful, like a sprawling field at Northwick Park. And, it's lovely. You always want what you can't have. So it's one of
yeah.
those things. But yeah,
um,
central London has a charm. You feel like you're in London. You're in the heart of all the action. So that's always great.
yeah. But yeah, so you said that you studied at University of Westminster, and that's why you also did your media degree. So
Yes.
what was your journey like to become like a filmmaker? What inspired you? Was this something that you always wanted to do in like journalism?
Journalism, yes. I always wanted to be a journalist. And the seed really for me was sown when I would watch a show called Hard Talk on the BBC, which is like a hardcore one-to-one investigative Q&A sort of a program where this presenter, Tim Sebastian, would sit across people in power from across the world and ask them the toughest questions ever in the smartest and the brightest of ways. And just to watch him do that, to hold people accountable for their actions, to me was everything at that point in time. And I always looked at him and I thought, wow, this is what I want to do. But I am a first generation journalist, filmmaker. So nobody in my family is from the world of media at all. So when I said to my parents, I want to study media and I want to be a journalist, they literally fell off their chair like typical Indian parents. Like, why would you do that? Why do you want to be a journalist? Why do you want to study journalism? You can do anything in the world. But I mean, this is the one thing I knew I wanted to do. And if you ask me again, would I do it? I probably would do it all over again because it opened up a lot of things for me. It gave me some of the best experiences in life, made me who I am today. I feel like the experience I've had as a journalist traveling across our country is unparalleled. I would have probably never been to the places that I have been because that's where my work took me. And the best thing is, I still don't think it's work. For me, every trip and every story that I do is exciting because there's so much learning in it. And you're finding out on the go, you're meeting people, you're hearing about their experiences. And there's nothing like getting to know people from anywhere in the world, and even better if it's people around you.
Yeah, I think what's quite evident here is that your journalistic background and your that drive you have for journalism comes out in your productions as well, right? So Bad Boy Billionaires is your way of calling out the people that, to a certain extent, made a mark negatively, for that matter, on
Yeah.
our country. And is that, I mean, is your inspiration from Hard Talk what drove you towards that kind of a production?
Yeah, I mean, it is at the end of the day speaking truth to power. If you look at any of the films that I do, there is an element of public interest. There are human interest stories. A lot of it is about unraveling what's going wrong because that's really what the media is here for. We are the fourth estate, we're the pillar of society. You're meant to be a reflection. You're meant to kind of, help with accountability. And all of that is somewhere lost, of course, but we're fighting the big fight. It is the big fight, and I feel so. As a journalist, I used to make a lot of these documentaries for news networks. I then started making them for OTT platforms. With OTT platforms, what's different is that you're, of course, reaching a wider audience, but the audience is here primarily to be entertained. They're not here looking for information or investigations as such. So I get to do that when I work with a media outlet with a news network. I get to kind of really hone my journalistic skills and dive into subject matters and find the truth, dig out the truth. With the other films that I've been making for big streaming platforms, it's reaching a wider audience and telling them something they may already know or something that's already in the public domain, but doing it in a visually interesting and telling way that you draw people in for the cinematic experience, for the storytelling that you bring to the table, rather than the investigation.
No, I fully understand what you mean, because actually I don't, because so the reason is my company also does journalistic editorial content for OTT platforms, but that's from a very different lens. It's like, highlighting legends and advertising and stuff like that. But you've got a handful of documentaries, Chef's Table, Street Food Asia, Bad Boy Billionaires, Mumbai Mafia, and now Caught Out, of course. And you've worked with Netflix, Sky Original, BBC One. In my experience, working with OTTs is quite difficult, especially when it's such pointed content. But what is your experience especially when it's something like Bad Boy Billionaires, which is, there are certain political aspects to it and all of those things that can come into it as well.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I feel like that sort of content is controversial, right? It's highly litigious as well, because you are speaking truths to power. These are people who have a battery of lawyers and can unleash at any point, if you say something that they don't like, and then you spend the rest of your time trying to, fight that or work that out in court. And we've had that experience before with some of the films that we've made. But over time, you kind of get better. You're more legally adept. You're more, we've always followed and towed the line. And I feel like that's where my journalistic skills come into my filmmaking skills. Because I work in the nonfiction space. I've been able to stay rooted in the craft of nonfiction. I don't know which way the market's heading, and I don't know which way things are going to tip. Because fiction is everything. If you look at the audience, everybody wants to kind of switch off when you come and watch your television. You want to watch something which has masala. You want to watch something that's entertaining. You want to watch something that's, gripping in a different way. I don't think there's a huge audience for documentaries in our country yet. I'm hoping that changes, and that's another fight. But the journalism comes into this because you realize there's a lot of there's a way to tell a story. There's the ethics of journalism that count when you're telling important stories like these, because there are always two sides. And so it's about balancing the story. It's about giving the right to reply to somebody. If you're, if you're kind of muckraking or telling people what went wrong with someone, you've always got to go back to them and be able to tell them, hey, is there something you'd like to say about this? Because there is another side. And so, we pay a lot of attention to these sort of things when we're making our films. Not everyone wants to come on and talk about stuff, because then it would give it a lot more credibility. So, for example, with Caught Out, there was a massive conspiracy of silence from the cricketers. They've never come out to talk about match fixing, and that's something even the CBI officers tell us. It's something they write about in their report. Is 25 years ago when they were doing, 20 odd years ago when they were doing the investigation and interrogating players, there was a massive conspiracy of silence. So lots of things came out, lots didn't, and that prevails. So it's tough in that sense, but things are changing. The fact that we have CBI officers on record, it's a covert organization. CBI guys don't really tell you how things work and what they did and what it was like for them to be doing what they did at any point. But we got some really solid people to tell us what had happened and unearth the truth and relive that experience for us, and that was the human interest story that we were able to bring out in Caught Out. That what was it like for these guys who had the burden of investigating something as serious as match fixing in cricket, which is a matter of grave public interest, but something that nobody wanted to know.
Yeah, and especially in like a country like ours, it's important. Like cricket is essentially a religion, so
Exactly.
when you go against that and like break the barriers of that, that's quite scary. And like not everyone wants to like be a part of the negative aspect, or at least not publicly say that they were part of the negative aspect that comes with it.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the like, so throughout, it's initially I guess started with the love for journalism and eventually also moved to filmmaking. So what was that transition like? How did you go, even though your journalism comes through your filmmaking, but what was like, how did it go from like being a TV presenter, for example, to it becoming making documentaries on these really important topics?
So, when you come from the world of news and current affairs, everything is now. We're in the moment of, that breaking news cycle. And I mean, that's when I came into journalism, when the breaking news cycle was at its peak in that sense. Everything is breaking news flashing on your TV. So you really have to be the first to get it out. You've got to be noticed. Your story then gets picked up by other people. But having trained at the BBC, you realize that it's not about breaking the story, but it's about telling the right story. And it's about verifying your sources. And that I feel like was my solid grounding with all the education that I had in the UK and the on-ground experience that I got, working with the BBC, working with Al Jazeera. These are brilliant institutions in that sense, because they train you in the best way possible, and the transition was basically from telling a story in 2 hours or 2 weeks to then having maybe a year and a half, 2 years to tell your story. So you could then, pay a lot of importance to how do you want to shoot it? What should it look like? What should your color palette be? You get the best speakers on board. You get the most articulate speakers on board that take you on a journey rather than get the most authentic voices closest to the story. Because even now, there's a lot of people that know a lot of things. But if they don't tell it in an entertaining way, you've lost them. You've lost the audience. Your people don't want to hear it, because I'm not coming to a Netflix or an Amazon to watch somebody say something in a drabby, slow way. I want it to be slick. I want it to kind of, hit the nail. But if I'm doing it for a news channel, I want to go to somebody who's the most authentic voice and telling me things as they unraveled in front of their eyes, and that's pretty much what the difference is. And I don't always have the liberty to show you the best visuals, but I want to tell you the best story in the best manner possible. So really, that's how things work on the news side of things, and that's how things are with the OTTs. But that said, I feel documentary storytelling with news networks is pretty hard hitting, because they tell you something you don't know, which I find fascinating. They tell you they're actually there to make a change. They're actually there to make an impact. Whereas on the OTT platforms, I think you're there to start a conversation, to reach out to a wider audience. And I feel both are important. What Caught Out did basically, is a retrospective film that looks at a match fixing scandal that happened in 2000 and much before, but it made it relevant today because you have the WPL, you have a fresh batch of women that have been inducted into cricket. You'll always have new sportsmen and women being inducted to various fields. And for them to know that if there's wrongdoing in what they're doing, it is going to get pulled up no matter how big you are and how high you get. If something is found out, there will be questions raised. And so I feel that's so relevant, and that's why it's like a good conversation starter. Whereas a news channel would look for a current peg. Okay, where is this? Has match fixing happened now? Like, that's the way we can go into a story. But here you can rake up an old issue and talk about it and make it relevant. That pretty much, I would say, is how I differentiate the two.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you have the power of time, right? Like there's no urgency to putting this out immediately. So you have the power of finding, like, yeah, as you said, the correct people, the correct story, and like making sure there are no like assumptions made in the process, but it's more legitimate in the entire of like what you're producing and putting together. But
Oh God, yeah.
yeah, throughout your documentaries, you played like different roles of either being a director or a producer. So I think for Caught Out, you were a director and a producer, but for Bad Boy Billionaires, you were a producer. So how does your role change from one to the other? Um, why be a director in one and just a producer in the other? Like, what was the reasoning?
You know, so Caught Out is my directorial debut for an OTT platform. I have presented and directed documentaries for news channels before, but it's a huge deal, you know, to be a director um, on a film which is about cricket, which is a male-dominated sport, you know, a heavily male-dominated, but to direct a film which has so many big boys talking about what went wrong meant so much to me, you know, when I did. And I also made it while I was pregnant with my twins. So it's a huge deal. It was a double, triple whammy for me in that sense. But, you know, in nonfiction, there's a very fine line between a director and a producer, because a producer really brings the story together, finds you the people to interview, you know, just kind of looks at everything, you know, is the overall caretaker for that film to happen. Whereas the director is, of course, very important. It's a director's vision that counts, but the director is also the captain of the ship. So, you know, you really take your whole team with you, and you've kind of got to inspire them at every moment. There are times where you go for an interview and you don't get what you're looking for. The interview is really drabby, but it's about keeping everyone really excited, focused on this is what we're after, this is what we're gunning for, this is how it should look. And it's basically the director's vision that plays out. And the producer plays a very important role in having that vision play out, you know, because they're fueling your vision. So I might want to interview somebody as a director, but if my producer doesn't help me get that person, I might not have that person, you know. But having donned the role of a producer in some of the big documentaries, you know, I kind of played that role as well in the film, because if something was not possible, you go all out to get it. You go all out to make it happen. And really, that's why I feel like there's a very fine line.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, it's your vision as a director. It's the vision that plays out.
And which position do you enjoy most? Is it director, producer, or producer-director?
Hey, you know, if I have a really good director, then I'd love to be a producer, because you want to fuel big things for people that can think out of the box. So, you know, I'm very, it's all about learning, right? At the end of the day, I think these roles are important. We've had to work really hard to be recognized for what we're doing. You know, a lot of the times when we're working with international productions, we get, you know, we used to get called fixers. And, you know, basically fixers are people that fix things for you and make things happen, but you don't realize that a fixer is actually your eyes and ears on the ground. The fixer is fueling that story for you. And so, you know, I kind of started having an issue with that term. And I would say to organizations and other co-productions and partners that, hey, if you're coming to us to work with you on a story, please give us the role of producers, because we're making the story happen for you. You know, we're not fixing it for you, we're finding it for you, we're fueling it for you, and we're often coming and telling you this is the story. So don't call us fixers. So it's been a big fight to do that. It's not come easy, but that's also why, you know, I'm very, very careful about making sure everyone who works on my films gets recognized for their role, because this is what you work for. At the end of the day, you want to see your name on that screen for the work that you've done, because it inspires you. It tells your family and your friends and your peers what you're doing. You know, what you're doing actually counts. And that's why I say, like, making things count, because it's all about making things count. You might be doing something, but if you don't get credited for it, you know, it's lost in the crowd, it's lost in the noise. So it's been a long journey to kind of, you know, for us being production partners to becoming the right producers and co-producers and now producing our own content. But these are very important tags. So I feel, you know, for me, if I'm working alongside people who have a lot of stuff under their belt and are great storytellers, I'm very happy to learn and I'm very happy to be a producer. But if it's my story and I have a great vision and I know how this should look on screen, then I want to direct it. You know, if I feel strongly about how this needs to be shaped and how this needs to come out, then I want to be the person in control.
Yeah. So you said if it's my story, then, you know, you want to have your vision. So where does your story come from? Right? So how do you decide on a topic? So where do you start your research? Where does the idea begin?
Sure. So, I feel like I've done so much work now, Anuj. I've been doing this for about a decade and a half, telling stories, whether as a journalist, whether it's on radio. I tried my hand at podcasts as well. I love podcasting, by the way. I think it's such an incredible medium. And it's only just kicking off. So I think great things that happen then. It's a great way to tell stories and, talk to people and find inspiring stories. But sorry, what was your question?
Where does the idea come from? What's the
There
root
you
of
go.
it?
Okay. So this is, my like thinking so fast. My ideas basically stem from my experiences with people. If I have a good conversation with somebody and I think, wow, that is a story worth telling, I'm like, okay, this is my next idea. And like my brain works so fast because at any point in time, I've got 3 ideas that I want to do, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to get one. If one gets hit, then I'm like, this is everything I'm gonna do now, because then you want to sleep, breathe, drink, party, everything with that idea of yours. And you're constantly thinking about how do I make this happen? So it's funny, when I was making Caught Out, I was so focused that even when I was in the operation theater delivering my babies, I was talking about my film with my doctor. And some great things came out of that because I found some great contacts and people to talk to. And I was networking in the OT. And my husband's like, Super, what are you doing? Like you're just about to deliver your babies. I'm like, yeah. But doc says she can introduce me to somebody. It's funny, but you're literally breathing that, So that's why I feel, Anuj, we want to stay rooted to this craft of telling extraordinary stories of ordinary people, because ordinary people are really, really doing extraordinary things. They need to be talked about. There's so much inspiration around us. When we have conversations like these, we find so many people, and you're like, hey, wow, you're doing incredible stuff. I have an idea that we can do together. So that's really where I find my inspiration, in real people, in meeting people that are making their time on earth count, that are making an impact, that are making a difference. And there are so many people doing it in so many different ways.
Yeah, no, for sure. And your passion is truly like you're out there talking about your documentary while you're giving birth. I am impressed, given that you could even think of something else. I think the pain itself would have been like quite overwhelming. But
Yeah.
overall,
Yeah.
the topics that you cover as well in your documentaries are quite serious and in like the dangerous territory, whether it's like match
Yeah.
fixing with Caught Out and corruption in Bad Boy Billionaires, um the underworld in Mumbai Mafia. Has there ever been like a scary or life-threatening encounter when you were like digging deep, or was there anything that you were or were you scared just to even like go into the depths of these serious topics while researching?
Yeah. Yeah. There have been stories that I've done where um the agencies have been alerted, and you find out they're around your hotel, and you're obviously stressed because you want to get your story out as a journalist. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
So without naming instances or telling you more about where and how this happened, there was a story that I did. It was pretty much a no-go story, which a lot of people didn't want to touch and a lot of journalists didn't want to do for their safety concerns. And a network came to me and said, hey, this is an interesting story and we'd like to tell it. Would you be interested in producing it? And I look at, the work that I do, I look at it as a piece of work. It's it's a job that I do on the line of duty. And my responsibility is to report it in the most authentic, efficient, and honest way. Without kind of making up stories or telling stories with a particular lens. So it's really about finding things on the ground, which is what interests me. And that's why I dive into things, because I'm not going into it with a set agenda. And if, a network has an agenda, I feel then I'm not the right person to do it, because I'm not going to fuel your agenda. Tell a story that I see on ground, and that's what freelance. I'm in a situation where I don't have to tell the story. And so, I'm not reporting to the editor and saying, yeah, you're right, this is the story. I can actually say to them, actually, this is not the story. This is what I found on the ground, and this is the interview that we can do. And that's why, I feel it's important for people like me to tell these stories, because you're doing it in a very honest way, without any premonitions, without any tint. And you can do it wholeheartedly with the intention of speaking the truth. And if you don't do it, then you're just going to get different versions of a story that may not necessarily make sense, may not be close to the truth. And it is scary to do it. It is scary because you don't know, sometimes you don't have control of how the story is going to be edited. You don't know how it's going to come out. You're not always anchoring it till the end. You pass it on to a post-production team to take it on. So those are concerns. But on the personal safety front, of course, again, for the family, it's not really appetizing to do things on the mafia and constantly do things about the bad boy billionaires and go after people with power. So it's a cause of concern. It's a worry for the family as well. But I know I follow very strong journalistic ethics. And I hope that, allows me to propel through all of this and get by. So, that one episode that I had where we have to kind of run with our tapes just to make sure that doesn't get our material doesn't get confiscated. It was worrying because we jumped in the car, and a journey which would have been sort of an hour and a half, 2 hours on the plane, we had to drive through different parts, different cities, and get back to base, just to be secure, just to not be intercepted at the airport or be found out by somebody. So we've done things like that. But you do that to get your story out. And especially when you're young and reckless, you do it a lot more. So I've had times when I've done that for stories. And now, it's just about being very diligent with your storytelling and fact checking along the way to make sure you're only speaking the truth. Because if you don't, you're going to get pulled up. It's so easy now when we make Caught Out, it's so easy to get rated or slated. So if we had anything wrong about any cricketer in that film, or anything wrong about any institution, or how the CBI did something, we'd be pulled up by a gazillion people, and there would have been a lot of noise to look after. But fortunately, we got through and people were happy with how we put it out.
Yeah, no, definitely. Your experiences overall seem incredible. And also just like, I think you have such a carefree personality, and I think it's so much needed for your job, because if you were stressed about every little detail, I don't think there would be interesting documentaries that were coming out from that. But
Yeah.
We have an interesting challenge for you next,
Go.
called Two Lies and One Truth. So Anuj, over to you.
So I think based on our conversation so far, I can personally feel your passion through the screen itself. But also there have been, some great moments and some very scary moments for you. So I think this is the perfect game to play at this point. So the idea is, it's called Two Lies, One Truth. You give us 3 statements from your journey so far. It can be a challenge or an accomplishment. One of them has to be true. The other 2 are false statements. And then we have to guess which is the truth.
All right. Okay. Wow. Interesting game, guys. Okay. So one is I am making a documentary on our Prime Minister. I am the founder of a music festival. I the third one, I don't like my move to Delhi.
As someone
you know
from
the
Mumbai,
answer,
I would
Janvi?
like. I was gonna say, as someone from Mumbai, I hope the third one is the truth.
I think, where am I? Sorry, can you hear me?
Hey, you can't Google stuff, okay?
No. So I'm saying, I think, I don't know, the Prime Minister thing will be tough to toe the line on that one. So maybe not that. But your face was, it seemed like you were speaking the truth when you said your move to Delhi. So I'm just going to go with that, that as the truth, that you didn't like your move to Delhi. Jami, what about you?
Yeah, same.
Really, guys? Hey, listen, I'm a founder of a music festival.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, tell me you knew that. Because, that's where the
I don't
breaking
know.
uneven part comes in.
I didn't know that.
Even I didn't know that.
Okay, so I have maybe we should do another podcast about that. Because that's where I haven't broken even. And that's been an amazing journey for me. It's been one of the most gratifying things I've ever done in my life is organized a music festival in the middle of nowhere in Jaisalmer. And I still have hopes and
Wow.
dreams that I will do it again because for me, gosh, I'm ecstatic talking about this. For me, I went to Glastonbury. It's the mother
Okay,
of all
yeah.
festivals, and it blew my mind. I was a student in the UK. I was working at the BBC. I knew a lot of friends who were DJs, and I land up at this festival, and it really took my breath away because you had 100,000 people singing the same song. The vibe in that place was unbelievable, and I still read of those moments. I was just telling my husband about it yesterday. Is I can't wait to take my babies to. I've taken them to a lot of music gigs. They're barely 11 months old, but I strap them on and we go dancing. But I can't wait to take them to a music festival with the earmuffs and camp with them because, that place teaches you so much about community, about enjoying things together, about feeling one, about music transcending everything there is. And just coming together of people. It's the most unbelievable experience. And so I did a festival called Rajasthan. I have some partners in that festival, and we did it out of nothing. So the festival comes up from scratch. We put up some tents. We make the most glorious stage. We've put in so much money to make that happen. But it's just the most amazing thing I've ever done, and I've burnt my fingers so much at it. And I've gone back, said, no, I'll do it better. And each time I've done it, we've done it better. We've had more people. We've had less outgoings from our pocket. But we've not broken even yet. And there's a dream. There's a dream to make that happen and do it in the right way. We don't charge people for water. You can't get people to come to a desert and say, hey, give me $100 for water. People live on that. We give you free flasks so that you can fill your flask and drink water and your chai and your alcohol in that so that you're not leaving plastic around. We bring musicians from across the country and work with embassies to bring international musicians. It's education, it's about getting to a place and finding out about music you've never heard and meeting people that are from such different walks of life that it will wake you up. You feel woke, if I can say it that way, for the 4 days that you're there, because you'll meet people that you would have never met otherwise. And to me, there's nothing better than creating a level playing field and bringing people from different walks of life together. So
a very different vibe to the Backstreet Boys concert that I went to last night.
Yeah, man, for sure. A part of me really wanted to go, but I've quit playing games with my heart now, and I just do the things I really love. I loved Backstreet Boys growing up. Now, no, that it's not my thing. But I think I would have still done it. I would have done it for the nostalgia to live through all of that. But I've got two babies.
It was entirely nostalgic. It was entirely nostalgic. They played about, I'd say, 25 to 30 songs entirely. But
wow,
the
they have so
crowd,
many?
yeah, exactly. But the crowd was only active for the 5 or 6 that we've been listening to for the last 20 years.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. But, I saw a video somewhere on Instagram where at the hotel that they landed up in looked like the Grand Hyatt in Mumbai to me. The team did a Backstreet's Back dance on the steps when they walked in. So it was quite nice to see. I think those guys must have been so happy that, somebody's listening to us, still listening to us.
Oh, they
I
are
have to only see it.
A-class like performers. They were dancing on like every song they did. They weren't just like singing and moving around. Like they had like full performances done up, outfit changes, and all of those things.
Oh
It was
wow,
quite it was
wow.
quite well done. I enjoyed it.
Oh,
Yeah.
sounds grand. Yeah. I mean, but they're also way out of our league, right? Like we don't have, when you're a startup festival, you don't want to bring people that are already known. You know, the whole idea is about music discovery. And that's
Yeah.
why Glastonbury for me was whoa, because there were musicians that I'd never heard of from across the world. You know, they have a world
Yeah.
music stage and they bring musicians from everywhere. And it's unbelievable, guys. So it's nice to go to festivals that still push live music, because everywhere you go, there's a lot of electronic music. And I'm guilty. I love electronic music. My daughter, who's only 11 months, the minute I put on some beat, she'll go like this, and I love that. But there's more to music than just beats, and I think it's nice to go out to concerts. So hopefully, we'll do another Rajasthan soon, and you guys will come out and see how we're struggling to break even.
Oh, we would love to, but also we should definitely do another podcast on that experience, because I read a lot about your experience in terms of a journalist and creating documentaries, but this is something that I did not read, so we definitely need more of that.
I'm
Because it
glad.
seems like it seems like you're doing a lot with that, and yeah, it'd be interesting to know like how you balance both of those as well, because they're such different things. Even though it's
Yeah.
like in the media industry, like being a documentary, is that a word? Someone who's creating
Documentarian.
documentary versus
Yeah.
someone that's started a music festival.
You know,
But
the funny thing is now that you're mentioning, there's a side to me at Rajasthan where I want their money, the big guys. And there's a side to me as a journalist where I'm like, hey, what did you do with that money? So it's so funny. It's hard to get them to meet. So I got to work doubly hard to get that money in for the festival.
uh, yeah, you're kind of hindering your own side in both those.
In that sense. Yeah, 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 yeah. But it's been
Uh,
interesting. Like you guys say, and I think the whole purpose of this podcast as well is learning on the go. It's not always about breaking uneven, like you guys say. It's about what you pick up and how you grow from that. And
yeah.
I feel like as long as there are ideas, as long as you do things, you're just going to keep growing. So yeah, thanks
Sure.
for giving me this platform to talk about the madness that comes with me and makes me me. And it's always nice to be able to share that with people.
Yes. So we have a rapid fire. That's the last part of our podcast.
Okay.
Again, I'll just ask quick questions, and then you can answer in a couple of seconds. So the first one: how many all-nighters did you pull during making Caught Out?
Ah, gosh, one too many, man. I mean, I was breathing it, right? Like if I'm talking caught out in the operation theater when I'm delivering my twins, you can imagine. So one too many, I'd say, yeah.
What is the scrappiest thing that you've done while making your documentaries?
The scrappiest things. What do you mean? In
So the most jogadu way of things that you've done.
uh the most jugaru thing while making my film is, I mean, production is all about jugaad. I'm just trying to think. I'll tell you the most jugaadu thing somebody else did. When I asked them to get us, we were filming a sequence. This is really funny, so I'll share it with you. We were filming a sequence where I told our art designer, I said, "Can you get me some face masks of Muhammad Azruddin?" Okay, because we want to show that there's so many fans, and you're at the stadium, and people have these face masks on, right? You know what he came back with? He came back with COVID face masks with Azhar on it. And I was like, no, I'm looking for a face mask, and not really jugadu, but we kind of had to burn that whole sequence down and not do anything with it. So we just had to scrap it because there's no way we could use COVID masks and say, hey, they're fans at the stadium. I don't know if this counts, but yeah, I think this is a funny story from our caught out story.
Fair. Weirdest place that you worked from?
The weirdest place that I have worked from is a bar at a beach in Ibiza. After an all-nighter, I landed up at the beach because all my friends were asleep. And sunrise is beautiful. I'm a morning person, so I was like, I am not sleeping. So I went partied. I came back. I'm at the beach in the morning. I spent the whole day at the beach, and these guys have woken up and they're coming at 2 o'clock, and I'm still at the beach, doing my thing. So, and working. So that was probably the most weirdest place I worked from, Ibiza. Who works in Ibiza, right?
Emotion when you had your first Netflix documentary.
Emotion, that blowing your head emoji. That's what happened to me because my first Netflix, I did Chef's Table, it was great. I did Street Food Asia, it was great. But Bad Boy Billionaires was something else. And my head was exploding. I remember I was in Goa and I wanted to make it celebratory and have a big screening because my husband and I had taken a lovely villa and, we were staying in that place for a whole month. And so I was thinking about having a party by the pool, big screen, and we find out it's all gone to court. So the film's not coming. The documentary series is not going to release. So really my head was exploding that day. But yeah, the adrenaline was crazy because I'd never encountered anything like this. I'd never known what it's like for a film to go to the courts and then, dealing with court cases. So yeah, my head was exploding, but it was really exciting, that release.
Would you ever retire?
No, never. No, man. There's a lot to do. There's amazing stories to tell. There's amazing people to meet. If I can't do it on camera, I'm going to do it from home. I'm just going to take my phone and record people, but I am going to tell stories because there's a story in every nook and corner right in front of me. It's a story. If I want to find out a story, there is one right here.
Your favorite part of making documentaries?
My favorite part of making documentaries is getting to know people. Your least favorite part? My least favorite part of documentary is the anxiety, dealing with the anxiety before it's going to release, because all you want to make sure is that it's not going to go to court and it will release. So that wait till it drops is my least favorite part.
Books or podcasts?
Podcasts, hands down, for me.
iPad or notebook?
A notebook, for sure. Here, I have my notebook right here.
You've already answered this, but morning person or night person?
Morning, and how? Wake me up whatever time you want. Don't ask me to stay up.
Favorite social media platform?
Favorite social media platform has to be Instagram. There's so much you find out that you don't know. Yeah. For me, yeah, Instagram.
Fair enough. So that concludes our rapid fire segment and bringing us to the end of the podcast. But before we end, we have a thing where we ask our previous guest to ask our next guest a question. And so we first ask you their question, and then you can ask our next guest a question. So
Sure.
Your question is,
what did you enjoy most about this podcast?
Talking to you guys, reliving my feelings and emotions, which doesn't happen often. You don't often tell people about your journey and how you feel doing the things that you do. And I think it's sort of, in a way, introspective as well. So I felt like it was a conversation with myself. So it was so nice and easy and flowy to speak with you guys. And just felt like a nice, engaging session, right? So when you throw something back at me, I'm thinking about it. And who has the time to do that when you're on your own? You're just running the rat race. So I feel like it's nice to be able to pause with something like this and think about what you're actually doing and where you're headed with it.
That's really sweet. And your second question was,
what was your last work task you cheated on with AI?
Wow, okay. I'm not very AI friendly, but AI is everywhere, right? So I would say, just finding people on LinkedIn I don't know if that's cheating, but you look for somebody and then you find someone else. So I'm like, hey, you killed two birds with one stone. Thanks for recommending. AI did that for me. So I'm looking for a certain kind of person, and now you're throwing up more. So I'll take it. Does that count?
Fair enough.
It counts
So
as
yeah,
a
what would
very,
be
very innovative answer. We were expecting something like, oh, I told ChatGPT to write an email or something for me. That is very interesting.
Yeah, no, man. I'm not there yet, and I'm not going to let them take over my emotion. No chance. I have a big problem with that.
yeah, it's
What would
getting
you
like
guys say to that? What would you guys say? What's the last thing that you did in that sense?
I'm similar to you, to be fair. I don't use like ChatGPT that much or like AI overall. I mean, I did try like we wanted to make a reel for Breaking Uneven. So I did try to like be like, please give me 3 things that I could say in this topic. And it was not very helpful. So I did not use it.
Hey, it's good to know it fails. Haha.
So the last thing I in fact use AI for, and the interesting part now that I'm remembering this, is part of the answer that ChatGPT gave me was Bad Boy Billionaires, because I asked ChatGPT for a list of Indian documentaries in a that are about, I mean, that are personality focused. That's what I'd asked ChatGPT for, because I mean, I'm working on a property for the homegrown brands of India. So yeah, I think that was the last, because I if I ever use it, I use it as a search engine, not as a write me an email kind of thing.
Yeah, but hey guys, I mean, AI is everywhere, right? Like Google's functioning on, there's an element of AI to everything that we're doing these days. Instagram for that matter. It's funny, when I was pregnant with twins, and I don't know, I would talk to my husband about something, and the next thing everybody in the household is getting all these, things maternity and whatever, and shop this and that. It's just it's everywhere. So
I saw this reel where like it confirms that your phone's listening to you. So it's like to like not let it off, or not to get like personalized ads on like Instagram and things like that. You need to turn off like your mic from like Instagram and turn off this from that and like stop personalized ads. So
man, and it's
I
not
don't think
possible.
it's a
It's not
conspiracy
possible.
anymore.
Yeah, it's not possible to do that. I switched off Siri because everyone said Siri's listening, but it's so inconvenient. Earlier, I could just be like, Siri, call my mom,
Yeah.
So they've made it so convenient to do so many things that you're hooked, and you're like, okay, what is better of the two? Do I want that convenience, or do I want my privacy? And then what privacy, right? Because I'm losing out on Siri, but Instagram's taking everything anyway. I can't go switch off everything every time. So man, it's
I've actually come to welcome the lack of privacy, because for me, for example, if I don't know, looking to buy a chair for my house, let's say a study table armchair or something, I just go and do one Google search, and then I don't even like really browse. So I just let it be, because I know for the next week I'm going to get Instagram ads of companies that are selling that. And I'm like, that's good enough for me. Like, it becomes part of my feed then.
But Anuj, imagine making a Bad Boy Billionaires and not having privacy. Just think about it. Just think about it.
That is a very different and scary context.
Just think about it. Just think about putting photos on Instagram about where you are, and then being like, oh shit, I don't want anyone to find out where I am. So I don't know, there's a lot of gray. But it's how you make everything count. And I mean, I just feel like if you live with fear, you'll get nothing done. And every step of the way. So let's just keep doing, and let's just deal with what happens.
That's I know like a lot of people say that, but like I think it's so important to be reminded that as well. Like if you live with fear, you're not going to do anything. Like I feel like sometimes I forget that, and like it's nice to get that reminder. No, but thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and learn so much about your journey. And there's so much more to learn, I feel like. So would definitely like to have you back and discuss more about the music festival.
I'd love to share. Whenever. Thank you, guys. Lovely to speak. And let's talk again soon. Good luck with what you're doing and getting to know people. And please find some extraordinary stories of ordinary people so that we can, make it count.